Hello Year 3 and 4 and welcome to today's phase assembly. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a huge well done for all of your fantastic work that you're doing at home. We're so impressed with everything on Seesaw, such a great effort from everybody, so please keep it up. So today we are going to be getting on with our phase assembly and talking about money. So Mr. Parker was talking to you a couple of weeks ago about ways to pay for things, and then Miss Boots was talking about saving and spending your money, which is obviously a fun part. And today we are going to be talking about how we can look after and protect our money. So we're going to be talking specifically about bank accounts. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I want you to have a little think about is, why do we have banks? So there's some questions there to help you. What would happen if you kept all of your money at home? Would you spend it all at once, or would you be careful and save it for a rainy day? Would your money be safe if you went on holiday or went out for the day? So now's an opportunity to pause the video and have a think about those questions. You might want to think to yourself or have a chat with someone at home if you're watching with somebody else, and come back when you are ready. Okay, hopefully you've had a little bit of a think about those questions and you're starting to see why banks might be important to protect our money. So let's have a look at some reasons why banks are really useful. So first of all, they keep your money safe. So no one's going to take it. It's going to be nice and safe and locked up away in there. Your money won't get damaged or lost because you know it's in a safe place. It's a safe way of receiving money, like wages. So when you're older and get a job, you can get your money paid straight into your bank and you know it's going to be safe there as well. It's an easy way to pay bills. So when you're older and you have to pay bills, you can come out of there regularly and you don't need to worry about that. It can also help you save up. So we're going to be looking a little bit at savings accounts today as well. You can use bank cards and bank statements and online banking. This can help you pay easily for things. You can exchange foreign money, currency, or apply for loans. So that might be money when you're going on holiday, or a loan is when you borrow money, which we're going to talk a little bit about later as well. And it just helps manage your money so you can know what's happening with your money all of the time. Okay, so what do banks do with your money when they have your money? So when you open a bank or building society, the bank accepts your money and it provides services. So they lend your money, that means give your money to people to use, but they will have to pay back, but they might use it for things like buying cars or houses, and these are what we call loans and mortgages. And the interest, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a moment, from these loans and investments is the bank's reward for lending. So we'll talk a bit about what that is in a moment. And when your money is in the bank, the government makes rules to make sure it is safe. So it's going to be very safe in there because the government's got some control in helping over that as well. So you can definitely trust them. So let's talk a little bit more about what interest is then. It's a little bit tricky, this. So if you lend, that means give money to your bank. So you choose to put your money in a bank, you'll get a little bit of what's called interest. And that's when they give you a little bit of money back, okay, to save. But if you borrow money, so when you're older, you might need to take some money from the bank to buy a house or a car, then you will have to pay interest back. So if I borrowed £100, for example, I might have to pay the bank back £110, just because I have borrowed that money off them for a little while. So when you apply for things like loans or credit cards or saving accounts, they always talk about the interest so that you know how much you might have to pay back. And it's always a percentage. So you haven't learned much about percentages yet, but you will when you get to year 5 and 6. So it's a little bit like a fraction of your money. You have to pay part of it back. So the more you borrow, the more interest you'll have to pay back. And the more you put into your bank account, the more you'll receive. So the more money you keep in your bank account, they will give you a little bit of money as a reward for keeping that money there, because that means that they can use it to help other businesses or other people and lend them money. So you're helping the bank out by having your money in there. So they give you that as a little reward for helping them. Okay, so services that banks offer. So they do lots of different things. The main one is obviously managing your money in a current account. There are some different accounts that we're going to talk about as well, but that is the main one. You can borrow money, as we've already mentioned, in loans or credit cards. So you won't need to do that now, but maybe when you're older, it might be to buy a house or help you with your business if you choose to have your own business. You can also save. So we've got a little piggy bank there to remind us what that is. So through savings accounts or investments. You can get what you call insurance for homes and cars and travelling. So if anything was to happen to your house or your car and it got damaged, then the bank would give you some money back. You can also get foreign currency, which we've mentioned. So this is money for different countries, because obviously we have different types of money, or you can get it put onto a card so you can pay for things as well while you're abroad, because you can't always use your normal card from England if you go to a different country, for example. You can also set up bill payments to pay your bills. They have mobile apps as well to make banking really easily. You can do it on your phone, you can transfer money to your friends or family and pay them for things. And then also what we've already mentioned, something called a mortgage. So when you get older, it's quite tricky sometimes to buy a house because they cost a lot of money. So you borrow some money from the bank and then you pay them back every month to pay for that. So then you can buy your own house. So lots and lots of different things that you can do. Obviously, some of them you won't be doing till you're a lot older, but it's really helpful to understand what they do. So banking services are available from many places like high street banks. So there's lots of different names you might have heard of, like NatWest and Lloyds and places like that. There's also building societies, and you can get stuff from the post office to do with banking as well. So before you decide where you want to put your money, you have to learn a little bit about the different accounts. So obviously, hopefully your parents or an adult at home will help you with that, but it's also really good to know a little bit yourself as well for when you get older. Some of you may also have a bank account already. So let's have a look at the different types of accounts that you can get. So there's what's called a current account, which is probably the most common account that you might hear about. So you use this account to manage your money coming in and going out. Your wages can be paid directly into your account. So when you get a job, they will go straight into your bank account. And you usually need to have a bank account to put your wages into. You can pay bills using what's called a direct debit or standing order. So that's when you set it up with the bank and it goes out straight away every month. You don't need to do anything. They'll just take the money and give it to who it needs to go to straight away. So it's really useful for paying bills so you don't forget. And the next thing, you can get a debit card, so a card to pay in cash machines or contactless, or when you put your PIN in to pay for things. So hopefully you've seen that before when you've been out and about with your adults paying for things. You may get something called a checkbook, which I know Mr. Parker talked about in his assembly, but these are kind of disappearing now. You don't really see them as much anymore. And then when you're older, when you're over 18, you can get what's called an overdraft, which means you can borrow more money and pay for things than you've actually got in your account. But again, they have things on them and charges. So if you do use it, you'll get charged by the bank because obviously it's not your money. So that's a current account. So you can also get what's called a basic account. So it's very like a current account, but it has no overdrafts. You can't borrow any extra money and it wouldn't come with a checkbook. But again, as I said, people don't really use those as much anymore. And you can also pay money in when you want to. So it might be if you've got some birthday money or if someone gave you a celebration, or you might get some pocket money and you can put that in there, and you might get a debit card as well to pay for things. Okay, the next type of account, if it's a savings account. So it's a safe place to put your money if you're saving up for something in the future. So some of you might have one of these already that your parents have set up for you to save for things when you get older, and you might put money in that regularly. and it usually has better interest rates than the current or basic account. So it's a better place to put your money if you want to save and get more money back, because the bank will give you better money. So the more you save, the more interest you'll earn. So the more money you've got in there, the more money the bank will give you back, because as I said earlier, they really appreciate having your money to use. So yeah, you'll get more rewards as well. When you're over 16, you pay tax, but if you're under 16 like you won't have to pay tax on that as well. So that's when you have to give some money to the government. So you get all of the money given to you from the bank if you get some interest. So that's really good. And then some savings accounts make you wait to take out of your money, or you risk losing interest. So that's really good if you're wanting to save, because it means you can't get the money if you need to get it out. So it stops you from spending it. So it's really helpful if you want to save up for something. That's why it's called a savings account. Okay, and finally, one of the other accounts is called a student account. So this is some account that you might get when you're older, if you choose to go to college or university. As you can see, we've got the little pig with his graduation hat on. So you get a debit card to withdraw cash and pay for things, because obviously when you go to university, you generally go and live on your own. And you can apply for an overdraft again, because once you're over 18, you might be at university and need that extra money to help you out when you're a student, unless you're very sensible and don't spend all of your money. And also something else that you usually get is often banks will give you free extras for opening accounts. So they might offer you some extra money or gift cards or things that will entice you and want you to go and get that bank account with them. Obviously, you have to be careful with those sometimes and look for the best option. So those are all the different types of accounts that you might come across. Now, as I said, some of you might have an account already. For a student account, for example, you wouldn't get till you're a little bit older, because you have to be studying at college or university. So lots and lots to think about when you're putting your money into a bank. And there's obviously lots of different banks, so you might want to find the best one that works for you. So I want you to think, how will having a bank account help me? So we've talked about all the great things that a bank account can do. So a few questions just to think about. When you grow up, what do you expect to be able to afford? So what do you want to be able to have? If you have a job, how will you be paid your salary, which is your wages, the money that your job pays you? Where will you live? Will you have a car? Will you save for things that you need or want? And where will you keep your money while you're saving? So hopefully with those questions you're thinking, oh, a bank will probably be a very useful thing to help me with all those things there. Because if I want to have a house or a car, I may need to borrow money from a bank. If I want to save for things, it will be useful to have a savings account to help me. If you have a job, you need to have a bank account to have your wages paid into. So as you can see, it's really, really important thing to think about. Okay, so we're going to stop in a moment, but just one last question I want you to go away and have a think about. So we've talked about all the different ways over the last few weeks you can save and spend, and different types of ways of paying for things. So after hearing what you've heard today as well, I just want you to think, if you had £100, where would you keep it and why? Now, it might not be that you want to put it in a bank account, but I want you to think why that is. Why would you keep it in that specific place? So go away and have a think about that. Maybe you want to let your teacher know you're breathing later, or you could post on Seesaw and let us know what you think. Okay, thank you for listening, everyone. I hope that was useful for you and you've learned lots about money. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about e-safety. So have a fantastic day and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.